with your painful secrets. Come to me with your tears of abandonment. Come to me with all of your regrets. Come, broken one, come. I will not cast you away. Come to me with all of your history. Come to me with all of your shame. Come to me in all of your misery. Come, wounded one, come. I will not turn you away. 'Cause you can find healing here in my gaze, here in my arms, here in my heart that knows all you are. You can find hope, you can find help, you can find healing here in my love for you. Come to me, you who have been betrayed. Come to me with all that you've given away. Come, child, I am safe. Come into my embrace. Come face to face. 'Cause you can find healing here in my gaze, here in my arms, here in my heart that knows all you are. You can find hope, you can find help, you can find healing here in my love for you. 'Cause you can find hope, you can find help, you can find healing here in my unchanging love for you. Here in my unchanging love.
Hi, good evening again. My name is Kendall, and I hope you are all blessed by the beautiful music that was just played. Welcome again to join us on this third day of our AOY conference, and I hope you're all ready for our workshop tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to make a few announcements. So, first thing, if you have any questions during the workshop, please feel free to type them down in the chat box below, or do email it to evelyn@aoy.web, evelyn@aoyweb.org. And also, if you have any testimonies or prayer requests that you're convicted to share, do post them on social media with the hashtag AOY2021 online, or you can email them to prayerteam@aoyweb.org. And lastly, I'd like to encourage you to join our United Prayer. There are 2 sessions. So for the Chinese session, it will last from 6:15 a.m. to 6:55 a.m. For the English session, it will last from 7 to 7:40 a.m. Malaysian time. And I believe many of us are looking forward to learning more about the different religious views and to be ready to be wild, right? So I pray that as we start our third workshop today by Dr. Pandit, entitled God, Fact, or Fiction, the message will speak to our hearts even more as we learn more about the truth. So before we begin, let us have an opening prayer. Let us pray. Our gracious Father in heaven, thank you for bringing us here on this platform that we can learn about your word. I just like to pray that you please fill Dr. Pandit with the full measure of your Holy Spirit, that you will use him to share what you have taught him through the years of searching, and may we all be blessed. So guide us into all truth. In Jesus' name we pray and ask, Amen. So, Dr. Pandit, the time is yours.
Good evening again, and I'm glad to be here with you. This is our third session. Let's get onto the share screen here. All right, July the 13th. I'm glad to be with you again. What we will do is have two sessions, two parts to the session. This time we're shifting out from the writings of the different religions to the founders. So a little review before we get into this today's topic. We learned in the first session how to be a neutral inquirer. And a neutral inquirer is not a believing inquirer and not a disbelieving inquirer. He or she just wants to know. And when you want to know, especially when it comes to beliefs, religion, God, philosophies, at any topic, you must make two theories and look at both of them, looking for the weight of evidence. Now we naturally shift to one side, which is our own side, what we believe. But that's the point of that, of saying that we should be neutral. Move away from that, come to the middle, look at both of them, and to help us remain as neutral inquirers, we need four factors: humility, honesty, calmness, and respect. That's not just for this search and this seminar. These four will be with you and help you in any situation when you're talking with anyone: humility, honesty, calmness, and respect. With that, we went to what we call the pan process. That's looking at both sides of the question. And the question on the first day was, is there a God, yes or no? Two sides. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. I mean, when you utilize the pan process, we need four columns of arguments. Look at one, pros and cons, two columns. Look at the other, pros and cons, two columns. And when you do all the four columns with humility and honesty, God does exist, because that's where the weight of evidence is. And we looked at what we would use when we get into this kind of a topic: just facts, reason, and logic, and that's it. With those three, we came to the idea that there is a God in existence. Then we looked at pluralism, which says all the religions are the same. And we looked at the writings, and I said at least that we looked at the writings, and they're not found in the writings. In fact, each religion claimed to be the only way. So logically, when more than one claim is made to be the only way, the champion, then logically they cannot all be correct. And we found they cannot all be wrong as well. So we were left with only one option. One among them was the only correct, legitimate claim of being the only way. And we started looking for that way. We started by asking questions. And the first question was, what is that writing, that scripture? How do we classify it? Ancient literature is classified into four: folk tale, legend, myth, historical. And we agreed that the historical was the most credible and the most reliable. And when we look at the features of each of those types of writing and pit it against the actual writings of the different religions, the five great world religions, we found that the New Testament is the best attested ancient writing in the whole world, and is solidly historical. Then we asked whether anything in the writing helps us to understand whether the message in that writing came from a supernatural realm. Only the Judeo Christian scriptures have a real test that anyone can do. It's called predictive prophecy. Can you state it beforehand what will happen? And we looked at the statement of Pierre Simon Laplace called scientific determinism, and he described an intellect that might be able to do that. And we found that when we looked at the Judeo Christian scriptures, we did identify the intellect there. So if the intellect over there can be established, then we can say probably what he says about doctrines and beliefs also is reasonable. So that's where we came to yesterday. Today we're going to ask about the founders today and tomorrow, and in fact, even day after tomorrow. So, the question to the founders today, the first question: what is the highest claim you make for yourself? This will be like evaluating the credentials of a person because he has claimed that he can take me across the bridge from the woes and the suffering, the pain of this world to a better place. There are different names: paradise, heaven, nirvana. I want to get there. And all of us actually want to get there when we look around. There's something here that does not tell us that this is the best place. And so, if there is a claim that there is a better place, and that place I myself cannot reach, then I need help. So, I need a guide, a person who can be my coach. So, if you want to be my coach, I want to know what your credentials. So, that's the question. What is the highest claim you make for yourself? So, we're going to look at the highest claim. In Hinduism, there is no founder. I just put the name Viswamitra there. He's not a founder, he's one of the authors, and Hinduism just has authors. But what is the highest claim that these authors make for themselves? That of being a sage. Who is a sage? A sage, a very revered individual in society. He has good poise and personality. He's a loving person, generous, and also he's deeply pious in his life, always living a good life in public as well, and he has a good command of the scriptures of that community. That's a sage. So the highest claim that the Hindu masters made was being a sage. Buddhism, Gautama Buddha said he was the enlightened one. He searched for light, and one night under what is called the Bodh Gaya tree, it's in the eastern part of India, under that tree, a ficus banyan tree, that he was enlightened in one night in four stages. And so, when he was enlightened, in the morning he got up and said, I'm fully enlightened. And so he claimed to be the enlightened one. Islam, Muhammad said he was the seal of the prophets. Islamic tradition has it that Allah sent down 124,000 prophets. Some of them are named, about 20 or 30 of them are named in the Quran. But of them all, Muhammad is the seal of the prophets. We're not sure what the meaning of seal is, but it could be that he stamps the authority and the truth of the matter, or it could be that he is the final one. Either of those, he is the seal of the prophets. Judaism, Moses said he was the prophet and the lawgiver of Israel. He met God on the Mount Sinai himself, and from him got all the laws and the rules and the regulations. So he was a prophet of God and the lawgiver of Israel. When it comes to Jesus, he said he was the Son of God. Now think about this. I asked, what is the highest claim you make for yourself, looking for the one that would be higher than the others? Just look at that list, and you will find that the line has to be drawn over here because all of these first four human beings: sage, enlightened one, seal of the prophets, lawgiver. This one is different: Son of God. Can you see the difference? Now, any one of them could have said he's God, but none of them did. So we have to ask ourselves, then why did this person say he's Son of God? These people didn't. Probably because they knew they were not. Therefore, we will conclude that this person, we don't know if he is God, but at least we know that he believed he was God, because these people believed they were not God. So they made all these. The second point on this is, this one is difficult to accept. Most people say, how do I know he's Son of God? How do I know he is God? That's a good question, but it applies to all four. How do you know that was the enlightened one? How? How do you know that Muhammad is the seal of the prophets? First of all, our aim now, when we ask the questions, is not to decide whether they are right or wrong. Just look at their answers and place it on the table and see what happens. In other words, we cannot controvert what their claims. We have no way of doing that. We can't say, Muhammad, you are not the seal of the prophets. So we accept them face value. And if we do that, then it is very clear that no matter how difficult it is to believe this, this is the highest claim. Got it? There's no question about it. But we are honest inquirers. So when we look at this, it is difficult to believe. He dresses like everyone else, eats like anyone else. In fact, he's just a carpenter. He goes to the carpenter shop, and we're not sure whether he has enough food to eat for the whole day. And he's calling himself Son of God. So rationally, it is difficult to believe. So when it's difficult to believe, what do? You start thinking of how to deal with this. One thing the normal person thinking would be, how can anyone human be God? So let's throw it out. But really, we cannot throw it out. Why? One of the reasons is, this is written down in the best historical piece of literature. It is not legendary, it is not mythological. So it is written there. I have to reason out what is there then, not just toss it out. Well, one way is to look to see if any humans call themselves God, and see if Jesus fit in one of those groups. And here are some of the groups of people who call themselves God. Those who are mad and deluded, it's called delusions of grandeur. Number two, a real incorrigible liar and an imposter, a person who just wants to fool the public. Number three, ego. We know that people in history have so much of ego that they claim to be God. The pharaohs of Egypt and the Caesars of Rome called themselves God. And four, honestly mistaken. And number five, well, truly God. So let's look at these four. Was he mad? What did them great thinkers say? I'm going to quote not somebody who was known as a great thinker, but he was a thinker. He was better known as a great warrior, a great general. In fact, he was a world emperor. The name Napoleon Bonaparte. When he was exiled, the people came to him and said, you have a lot of time, so why don't you talk about or look at this person called Jesus? He laughed and he said, Jesus, that barefoot itinerant village preacher, why should I think about him? I am world emperor. At least I have a big empire. They said, no, just look at what he says, because there are many people today who really feel that he said something quite unique. He was unique. He said, okay. And when he did his study, this is what he said: everything in Christ astonishes me. The nearer I approach, the more carefully I examine. Everything is above me. Everything remains grand, of a grandeur which overpowers. Neither history, nor humanity, nor the ages, nor nature offer me anything with which I am able to compare it or even to explain it. Here, everything is extraordinary. Why did he say that? Because he knew that he had formed his empire on force, bloodshed, and military maneuvers. You deceive the enemy. But this man, he had no army, he had no equipment. And yet, 1800 years later, he said, people are willing to die for him. Not a single person is willing to die for me. That kingdom, that empire he set up is absolutely unique. And that's why he said these words. Bernard Ram, describing the words of Jesus, said, they are read more, quoted more, loved more, believed more, translated more, because they are the greatest words ever spoken. And where is their greatness? Their greatness lies in the pure, lucid spirituality and dealing clearly, definitively, and authoritatively with the greatest problem that throb in the human breast. So, in short, looking at any scholar, serious scholar, I could not find any serious scholar saying Jesus was mad, deluded. Number two, was he a liar or an impostor? Not likely, because his answer at the Sanhedrin trial. In the trial, they asked him the same question we are asking today. Tell us if you are the Son of God. Now, Jesus was a Jew. He knew the Torah, the law. He knew that if he said yes, he is the Son of God, they would immediately place on him the charge of blasphemy and put him to death. Now, if you are on trial, don't you think you will bring truthful evidence to escape the death sentence? Nobody in his right mind will bring false evidence to bring on the death sentence. But here he answered in the positive, affirmative. He said, yes, I am the Son of God. And for that, he went to his death. No person of a sound mind will provide false information to bring on the death sentence. So, yes, we are not sure. We don't know exactly at this point because we are searching, is he really the Son of God? But this much we do know. He absolutely, utterly, fully believed that he was the Son of God because he stood for that and went to his death for that. We can't call him a liar. Who is a liar? Not a person who tells an untruth. That's a mistake. A liar is a person who knows the truth and says something else. That is a liar. And we shouldn't use that word too easily on anyone. A liar, that's quite a charge to make against an individual. So we don't get that idea when we look at this Sanhedrin trial. Didn't seem to be a liar. Egomaniac, he had no position of authority. You have to have that so that you can push your idea out that you are a god. On the other hand, there was a time when he and his disciples were in a house, and the usual thing was their feet were supposed to be washed, and the person who was at the lowest rung of the social ladder actually washes feet. The servant, the slaves. And so when they all sat and they looked at each other, who is going to do that? Who's going to bend down to that level? And Jesus saw that. He took off his outer garments, wrapped his waist in a towel, and he bent down and washed the dirty feet of his disciples. That is not a sign of self importance, my friends. So he was showing that he was not an egomaniac. So I couldn't call him an egomaniac. Number four, honestly mistaken. A fourth possibility, almost too obvious to need mentioning, is that Jesus was honestly mistaken. Plenty of people are. This is the atheist Richard Dawkins in the book The God Delusion. Jesus was simply mistaken. He was not God. Really? Let's let's check that out and with just ask a simple question. Can I ask you ladies, can you be really now just honestly mistaken that you are the Queen of England? Really? How about you guys? Can you be honestly mistaken that actually you came from Mars for this meeting here? You're not from this place, you're from there. Really, you cannot be honestly mistaken about major things. You can be honestly mistaken about a face in the crowd, mistaken, or where you left your keys, but you cannot be mistaken on such huge topics. Nobody is. So when he says plenty of people are, that's wrong. We are mistaken about minor things, but never about major things. Is such an intellect of Jesus, clear as the sky, bracing as the mountain air, sharp and penetrating as a sword, thoroughly and healthy and vigorous, always ready and always self possessed, liable to such a radical and most serious delusion concerning his own character and mission? Preposterous suggestion. No, he was not any of those. We leave him there as possibly truly God. He's not fitting into any of the other uh, categories. No, what to do? But we still struggle, don't we? Honestly, there are many people who struggle. And in fact, that's where I do my talks. Secular university campuses. That's my mission. They struggle. Many people struggle. And some of them say, well, I'll give him the top spot of being a great moral teacher, a great prophet, but not God. But here's what C.S. Lewis said. C.S. Lewis was a professor at University of Cambridge. All his life he was an atheist. But just like Anthony Flew we saw on the first day, he used that phrase, go where the argument leads. And in his logical journey, he came to the idea that this man really was the one. So here's what his words are. I'm trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. And that is, I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would be either a lunatic on a level with a man who says he is a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come up with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. What's he saying? He's saying that once a person in his right mind claims to be God or the Son of God, which is really the same thing, then you have only two options. One, show that he is not the Son of God, he's a sham, a scam, a con artist, and boot him out. Or recognize that he might be the Son of God, and fall at his feet. You have only two options. There's nothing in between, my friends. That's why we said we have to go across. Pan process means you must make two options far apart from each other and look at both. And we did that right now. And you can continue doing that, my friends, and look at every evidence that has been given. And we're going to do it for today, tomorrow, and the day after, and maybe even the final day on Friday. Make up your mind after going through a thorough investigation. Become a neutral inquirer. And when you do that, you realize that this idea of a person who was on this earth and made such tremendous claims has some good basis. And so when we look at this, we have to agree that compared to all the founders of the other religions, Jesus clearly made the highest claim of all. He was not a human being only, he was a God. We could not throw him out by putting him into one of the categories. We just leave him there. It's reasonable and it makes good sense when you look at the evidences. Let's take a break. If you have any questions, write them down and send them in, and we will discuss them. So think about what I've been saying. Look at each of those points. All right, if you have written your questions, I hope you have. Let's carry on. The second one for this morning is, what is the message and mission of the founders? And we're going to compare them. This comparison is not regarding the actual details of the message or mission. Those would be too cumbersome and large for us to manage in just a short presentation like this. Rather, we will compare the way that it was stated in a nutshell. How do you describe in a short, brief sentence your message and mission? Here it is. The Hindus, those authors, and all the sages, the message and mission was to show the way to the ultimate truth of the matter, which is the merging of the human soul or Atma into the super soul of Brahmatma or Brahman. You break the cycle of birth and death on this earth and you escape out there and merge with the ultimate Om Shanti. That is the message and mission of the Hindus, to show the way to the truth of the matter. In Buddhism, Gautama Buddha said that these are his words, for enlightenment I was born, for the good of all that lives. In other words, I was enlightened. Therefore, I will teach you also how to get enlightened. By the four golden rules and the eight right circumstances, I was enlightened. I will teach you how to get enlightened. Islam, for Muslims, the Quran is the infallible word of Allah, revealed to the Prophet Muhammad by the angel Jibreel, Gabriel. So, what is the message and mission of Muhammad? To bring the word of Allah to the human race so that you may know that word, learn about it, and pass judgment by going through the truth of those words from Allah. That was his message and mission, and bring the word of Allah to the human race. Judaism, this is what God said through Moses: you shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man does, he shall live. So, what is the message and mission of Moses? To bring the commands of God, the rules, the statutes, the judgments, and place them in front of the human race and say, please keep it, and you will have life. You want life? Here are the rules. Keep to it. Here are the commands. Hold on to them, and you will have life. When you come to Jesus, he uses the most peculiar words, but they don't seem to be peculiar and unique in the beginning. But here are the words: I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the light of the world. This word, I, Jesus, about Jesus, the word became flesh, a human. I am the resurrection. I am the life. Now, when you look at that by themselves, many people read that, especially those who are believers, and they pass by it. But we are doing a comparison. So let's compare. The Hindu master said, I will show you and teach you the way to the truth. Jesus said, I am the truth. I am the way. Gautama Buddha said, I was enlightened. Jesus said, I am the light that enlightens. Think. When Muhammad said, I'm bringing you the word of Allah, Jesus said, I am that word made flesh. I am. And when Moses said, you want life? Keep the commands. He said, I am the life. Strange and very powerful word. Nobody else said, I am, of the whole message, except him. And you can see how clearly it is different from anybody else. You remove Buddha, and one can still reach Buddhahood by following the writings. Remove Moses, and one can still be an Israelite by following the writings. You remove the authors in Hinduism, and one can still reach the abode of Brahma and go into paradise. Remove Muhammad, and one can still pass judgment by following the Quran and the Hadith. If you remove Jesus, Christianity states that nothing remains. All the founders of the various religions and belief systems claim to bring a message to the world. None ever claimed to be the message except Jesus. All the other founders came and said, I will teach you the tenets of beliefs, the doctrines, the philosophies. He's the only one who said, I will teach you about myself. I am the message. Everyone said, I'll bring you a message. He said, I am the message. So the declaration of I am sets him apart as truly unique. Now, when we look at that initially, it really makes sense regarding the actual writings over there. But let's look at it a little closer with two examples. The example of a comparison between Jesus and Gautama Buddha and between Jesus and Muhammad. In the case of Gautama Buddha, he left his palace looking for light at the age of 29. And for 6 years, he looked for light. He beat himself, starved himself, stood up for long periods of never sat down for long periods, never stood up, lay on a bed of thorns, nails, pulled out the hair of his head and the hair of his beard, looking for light. And towards the end, he said, this is not working. So he went back to a normal life. And then after 6 years, one night he was enlightened and he said, now I am enlightened. I am enlightened. Compare that with Jesus. He didn't have to pull out the hair of his head and the hair of his beard. He didn't beat himself. He didn't starve himself just looking for light. He simply stood clearly, unequivocally, and simply and said, I am the light. I didn't have to be enlightened. Now think, who would you prefer to have on a stormy night going through from one place to another? Would you like just to have a candle, the light in your candle, which can be blown off anytime by the wind outside in the storm, meaning your life storms? Or would you like to have the source of light so that anytime your candle goes out, the source can come and light it again? Which would you prefer to have? Just the candle or the source of the light? Think. Which would you prefer to have when you're crossing the desert? Just your canister of water or a whole truck, hundreds and thousands of gallons of water just going side beside you through the desert? Anytime your cup is empty, he will fill. He is the source. I am. Those were his words. Absolutely unique. And so when you compare Jesus and Gautama Buddha, we do say, yes, you may have been enlightened, Gautama Buddha, but look at this side. He says he is the source. He is the light. Remember what we said? Pan process means going across. A neutral inquirer always goes across, always weighs out the weight of evidence. Look at the weight of evidence then. The second one is the comparison between Jesus and Muhammad. Now, we saw that Muhammad called himself, and the people also acknowledged that he was the seal of the prophets. One of the reasons that he was called the seal of the prophets was because of a very specific, unique experience he had. It's called Isra, the night journey, and Miraj, the ascent. So, this is what happened. In the traditional writings, this is the story. One night when Muhammad was sleeping in Mecca, angel Gabriel came to him, woke him up, and said, come with me. And right beside them was the heavenly horse, Buruk. Come, let's mount Buruk and fly over to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And when they land there, they find a ladder going up. Allah had created 7 levels of heaven. So there were 7 levels. The ladder went up to the first, and to the second, and to the third. And so Gabriel said, Muhammad, let's climb up the ladder. And so they climbed up to the first level of heaven. And there were the prophets who were at the gate, allowed them to enter in. And then they went to the second and to the third. You know, the gates they were manned by prophets. There was Adam, there was Joseph, there there was John the Baptist, there was Moses, there was Jesus, also one of them. And when they came to the seventh heaven, now the seventh heaven is where Allah dwells. If we look at traditional writings, the idea that Muslims have about Allah, he is completely transcendent. That means he is completely separate from humans. No human can ever know Allah. You can know his commands and his rules, which he sends through angel Jibril, but you cannot know Allah. But on this very specific, auspicious night, angel Jibril takes Muhammad up through the seventh heaven to the seventh heaven where Allah dwells, and he does meet Allah and talks about how many prayers are best for Muslims on earth. Came back with the number five. That's why today Salat prayer is made 5 times a day because of this experience. He got it straight from Allah. And then he came down that same night. And when he told the people that angel Jibril had taken him through the seven heavens and to the seventh heaven where Allah dwells, and then came down, the people said, "Whoa, you are the seal of the prophets." Agreed. No questions asked. So that's the story. So when we look at it, we say, yes, there is a story. And we agree that could have happened. Although when they asked his favorite wife Aisha that night, where was Muhammad? She said he was sleeping right here all the time. Therefore, the journey was not a physical journey because he was right there. It was most probably a spiritual journey. But he did go up there. And let's acknowledge it. He did go up there. But when you look at the story, there is a certain confession that we will have to make, and that is the point of comparison. The confession is this: Muhammad agreed that he had to go from here because this is where he lived. The earth is where he lived as a human like you and me. And he had to climb all the way to heaven for a visit to that place and then come back down here. Unique experience, of course. But that's the confession. You belong here and went there for a visit. And like we said, a neutral inquirer using the pan process will always go to the other side as well. So let's go to the other side and ask Jesus, how do you compare to this? And here's the other side. Where Muhammad went for a visit is where I live. That is my home. And I came here to this earth for a visit. So when you look at those two, the origins and the direction of travel is exactly the opposite. Muhammad lived here, went there for a visit. Jesus lives there and came down here for a visit and went back there. Can you see that difference? That is why we do a pan process and we go across. That's why you have to be a neutral inquirer and look at both the options. When you look at both, check out the weight of evidence. Now, the real question: who will know more about where you are? Let's say in, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Who will know more about Kuala Lumpur? Me, who comes there, takes the plane from Los Angeles and flies all the way straight to Kuala Lumpur and visits the place, the city, for about 4 hours, maybe 6 hours, maybe one whole day. And in the evening, take the flight back to Los Angeles and all across to Maryland, where I now dwell. How much of the city will I know and the people? What about a person who lives right there in Kuala Lumpur? Who will know Kuala Lumpur better? The one who lives there or the one who comes for a visit over there? Obviously, the one who lives. In other words, if we are going to describe that other land, paradise, heaven, the idea of nirvana there, then we have to ask the person who lives there. From there, from the realm of absolute truth, the one who lives there will be able to tell us the absolute truth of the matter, the one who lives. So we have established, my friends, in reason, in looking at the evidences, that when you look at that, that's the place where ultimate truth dwells, and this man dwells there, and he came from there. So we have to listen to him. Not that we throw off everybody else, but we weigh everybody else out and check and see whether this person or that person has told us something that is more weighty. The weight of the matter decides the question. Question time. Are there any questions? While you are jotting them down, if there are any, I don't know if there are or not. Let's review one of the questions or two of the questions that we had. One is from the day one, when somebody did ask, who made God? That's a very common question because it's a logical question. As you say, this made that, and that was made by the previous one, and that was made by that. And when we come to the end, we say, now God. So who made God? And that's a logical question, but we saw that when you look at it carefully, while it is logical, it does not stand scrutiny because of one or two things, like we said. Number one, if we say who made God, first we have to define God, and the definition of God is he is not made. So we cannot really genuinely ask the question of who made the thing that was not made. But more importantly, actually, that question answers the big question. The question of who made God answers the big question of, is God in existence? Think about it. I mentioned it earlier. If I ask who made this this cell phone, a mobile phone, who made it? The very question, who made it, means that it is in existence. Nobody asks for the maker of that which does not exist at all. No, it has to exist. Then the question has meaning. So if that question has meaning, you have already agreed that he exists, and now you're asking for who made him, who is his father. But then that question settles that he is already in existence. Can you see the strength of the argument right there? That the question that we are asking itself answers the big question of God's existence. Secondly, look at the other side, the atheistic scientific side. What is the theory over there? Where did the universe come from? Came from a point, a dimensionless point. All the energies of the universe that we see today was actually condensed into one single point. That was the starting point. Because energy does not occupy space, it was crunched into that one point. It's called singularity, single, dimensionless. Not a line, it's a point. And that point not exploded, expanded. That's the correct. Uh, that's the correct description of the Big Bang. That the point singularity expanded suddenly and then became the whole universe. So now the question really is, where did the singularity come from? Who made singularity? Can you see now we are looking at say the same question both sides? Who made God? Who made singularity? So who made singularity? And the answer is we don't know. Came by itself. Well, if you say you don't know and came by itself, then it should apply on this side too. You don't know who made God. It came by itself. So accept it. If you give an explanation here, and the same explanation on the other side, then you have You have stated that the explanation is valid, but actually, that's not an explanation. To say that it happened somehow is not a scientific explanation. A scientific explanation is one that gives a real picture, not just says somehow. But that somehow word is always put there if you notice. Go and read it up. Study how they talk about singularity. Somehow, somehow it came from absolute nothingness. The word somehow is not an explanation, because if you use that as an explanation, you have to accept the explanation then on the other side. And here we are not saying somehow. We are saying that this God is a God by definition, always in existence. So the question of who made God is not relevant here, because God was never made. He was always in existence. And even if we can't accept that, then we can't accept on the other side as well. Who made singularity? And if you say somehow, then that cannot be accepted. If you can't accept both, that becomes absurd. So we have to accept one of those. Think about how we go about our the way we examine these details and these claims. If you examine them carefully, my friends, be a neutral inquirer, be humble and honest. Look at the evidence, reason, and logic. And I believe we will come to the truth of the matter in most of these things. Okay, any questions now?
Yes, Dr. Pandit, we have some new questions coming in.
Okay.
Yes. So the ones for today is, who is Muhammad? Who is Muhammad?
Who is Muhammad? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mention that. We are comparing the five great world religions. So the first two questions were to the writings. The second question, which we started today, is to the founders. So when you look at the founders, we said that there's no founder for Hinduism. They are just authors. The founder of Buddhism is Gautama Buddha. The main person who brought the Islamic message to the world is Muhammad, the prophet who lived in the 6th and 7th centuries AD. He is the one we are talking about, the one who formed and brought the message of the Muslim faith to the human race. So the founder of the Islamic faith is Muhammad. He is the one we are talking about.
All right, in relation to Muhammad, someone asked, is it safe to say that Muhammad is also a prophet?
That's a claim. We, as inquirers who are neutral inquirers, not taking sides, we accept anybody's claim. You should. That's the way to do it. You claim to be a prophet? Fine. Theory number one, you are the prophet. But remember, as inquirers, neutral inquirers, we don't just look at it, we examine it. And the way to examine it is to make another theory on the other side. And here, what we are looking at is not whether you're a prophet or not. We are looking at whether the prophet has high credibility, the highest credibility, because each of them said they are the only way. Think, each of them said they are the only way. So if I find this person over here saying that he is the only way, and this person over here who's saying he is the only way, then my reasonable judgment and inference is that this person is actually the only way. So we're not deciding whether he's a prophet or not. We are deciding whether the founder's claims are are at a level that is really gripping and holding us. So yes, as an inquirer, I will say, yes, that's your claim. I will accept your claim as a prophet. But can you look at the other side also and see whether this person is a prophet, Jesus? And we find that he's not just a prophet, he says he's the Son of God. So where is the level now? A prophet here, God here. Can you see what we're trying to do? We are not saying that you're wrong. We're just comparing it. This is what's called abductive reasoning. You just compare. You don't say you're wrong or right. You accept it, compare it, and see which one has the weight of evidence. And that is the way of being a good inquirer.
Right. So it's all about testing the credibility. Okay, we have more questions about the Islamic religion. So someone asked, where is Allah from?
Once again, Allah is not from anywhere. Remember, He is God. The Muslims, God. The word Allah comes from a root word illah, the one to be worshipped. The Shahada, the declaration of the Muslims, La ilaha illallah. The one to be worshipped is Allah. That's the meaning of that word. Where He comes from, nobody can know. No human can know. Like I said, He is transcendent. The meaning of transcendent is that He is separate from humans. He's here and there's a huge gap. No human can bridge that gap. So we cannot ask anything about Allah Himself. What we can know is Allah's commands to us who are on earth and the human race. We can know what He tells us to do or not do. And that came through Angel Jibril to Muhammad. About Allah Himself, we do not know, except what Muhammad tells us. And He gives Him 99 wonderful names. That's all we can know about Him. Where He came from, unless He tells us, we won't know. And really, we can't even go there because God really is everlasting.
Right. Thank you for the explanation. Dr. Pandit, before moving on to the questions that are being put out today, many are wondering whether or not you will go back to the questions that were asked yesterday.
Anytime.
We have
Remember, the
time for
question period is relating to anything we said from the day one. Anytime, because some of these things
Okay.
I recognize, some of these things we don't usually talk this way, right? We this is a different type
Yeah,
of
yeah,
talking.
definitely.
So when we do this
Yeah.
type of talking, sometimes after when we think is it, hey, he said that, but I have this question. So sometimes it takes time, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. So you can ask
Mm,
any question. There was one
okay.
question that was earlier that I have here, and it was, and the question was, what about the Old Testament? Remember, we saw the New Testament was really historical. What about the Old Testament? I had not classified
Yeah.
it. So what do we do about the Old Testament? Well, here's the way you go about the Old Testament. We do not have the same idea as the New Testament, but some are similar. For example, the number of manuscripts. Do you know even the Old Testament is backed by thousands of manuscripts? So that itself, we say, hey, that tells us that the text is quite okay. And the second one, and a major one for the Old Testament, is archaeology. What does the Old Testament write down in its history? And what do we find in archaeology? And remember the statement of Nelson Gluck, the Jewish archaeologist, who said there's not a single archaeological find that has ever controverted any biblical writing. So, when archaeology, what we find, and there are many, many examples. For example, one, let me give you just one. The Bible mentions the word of a nation and a tribe called the Hittites. Now, the Hittites were not known in secular history for a long time. So, based on that, they said the Bible is wrong. We can't trust it because it says Hittites when there are no Hittites in any of our secular history. And then, as they dug and did the archaeological findings, they found a whole empire of Hittites. So, when you look at archaeology and you make a claim that it is not there and you find it, then it establishes that. And when you keep on doing that, and you recognize that what is written down there is really found in archaeology, then we have good reason to say that it's okay. We can accept it. Furthermore, the people in the New Testament, like Jesus and the disciples who wrote the New Testament, almost always quoted from the Old Testament. So, number of manuscripts, archaeological finds, and those in the New Testament who are solidly historical are referring to the Old Testament as really historical, then we have some grounds on which to stand to say that that also is historical. Okay, what is your question? Anyone out there?
Right. Actually, there are quite a lot of questions in regards to the religion. So we will continue on for the Islamic religion. Someone asked, was it God or the angel of God who talked to Muhammad when he visited heaven? I think you mentioned about the
Ca- ca-
angel Gabriel.
Just a little slowly, I didn't get that question.
Was it God or the angel of God who talked to Muhammad when he visited heaven?
What are the words after the angel? Was it God or angel?
Angel of God
Angel of God.
who
Okay.
talked to Muhammad.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Who
Once
talked
again,
to Muhammad
we are
when he
not
visited.
say that again, please. Was it?
Um, God
Yes.
or angel of God who talked to Muhammad when he visited heaven.
Oh, the seventh heaven you're talking about? No, seventh heaven, he talked to Allah himself. Angel Jibril, the one who really is the messenger from Allah to Muhammad, the angel Jibril took Muhammad there. But when he went to the seventh heaven, the claim in that story is that he talked to God himself and they decided how many prayers the people should do every day. Salat, prayer, yeah. So he talked to Allah himself. Like we said, we are inquirers, so we cannot controvert that. We just take it as his claim. Fair enough. But remember what we did. We compared the claim to find out the weight of evidence. That's what we keep on doing whenever there's a question.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. I keep forgetting. Um, the same person asked, if we serve the same God in relation to the Islam religion, how come our prayer, laws, etc. are very different compared to Islam?
So this person obviously is a Christian because a
Yes.
Hindu can say the same thing and a Buddhist can say the same thing. So
Yeah,
I'm
she.
presuming this is a Christian who is saying it's different. And at the same time, you are saying the same God. We didn't say the same God. We
Yes, the
said
same
that
God.
claiming to be the same God. So now let's make two theories. Theory number one, same God, Allah and Jesus. There's a book, by the way. Is the God of Muhammad the same as the father of Jesus? Same God. So theory one, same God. Theory two, no, there's a question whether they are the same. So are they the same or is there a question where they're the same? So there are two theories. So let me give you some way of looking at it by some real information on the two sides. When you look at Islam, it really speaks about Jesus too. The name in the Quran is Isa bin Maryam, Jesus, the son of Mary. In the Hebrew scriptures, he's called Yeshua, and that's in the Bible. So we are saying Allah sent down the Quran and the Father sent down the Bible. Are they the same? So let's look at the story of Jesus. Isa, the Muslim Jesus, was born in a desert. Where was Yeshua born? He was born in a town. And in desert, there are not many people. In the town, there were so many people, there was no room to find in the inn. The Muslim Jesus, Isa, was born under a palm tree. Yeshua was born in a stable. Can you see the difference? When Isa was born, immediately he stood up and spoke. Miracle. When Yeshua was born, there was no miracle of that nature. He grew up like an ordinary child. There was no miracle there. The truth also is that Isa was not crucified. Jesus was crucified. Yeshua was crucified. The Isa of the Muslims was never put to the cross, so he never died. Whereas Yeshua died. Isa was exchanged. Somebody else was put on the cross in the place of Isa. But in Yeshua, no, he himself was put on the cross. So he died. Now, if he did not die, then there is no such thing as resurrection of Isa at all. In fact, Allah took him straight to heaven. No death, no resurrection. Whereas the Christian Yeshua, there was death, he was put in the tomb, and he was resurrected. Now think very carefully, my friends. If there is no death and resurrection, then there is no Christianity at all. Zero. The entire strength of the Christian faith rests on one solid foundation, the death and resurrection, bodily resurrection of Jesus. In the Muslim faith, Isa is going to come back again. There is a second coming of Jesus in the Muslim faith. He's going to return. And in the Christian Yeshua, he's also going to return. But when Isa comes back, the Muslim Jesus, he's going to come back to a specific mosque in the Near East. The town is mentioned, so he's going to come to that mosque. But when Yeshua comes, he's going to come in such a blaze of glory that everyone will see him. When Isa comes, he lives on earth for 40 years. He gets married and has children, and then he dies, and then he is laid in a tomb that today is empty, and the tomb is beside Muhammad's tomb. He's going to be put there. When the Christian Yeshua comes, he's never going to die. He's going to set up an eternal kingdom. Think now, my friends, is this the same story? Really? Is it the same story? So we have only two options here. Either one of them is wrong, or the one who told them, one of them who told, is not really the right one. And that is what we must decide. Look at this, look at that, and look at all the evidences on either side, and then weigh out the evidence. Don't throw any of the claims out. Look at them and weigh out the evidence. That's exactly what we are trying to do, my friends, in this today, tomorrow, and day after, and even on Friday. So patiently, let's make the plan. Patiently, let's do each step. And I think we will come to a place where we will be able to make out the way we must go by the weight of evidence. We don't say you're wrong. We just say, hey, the weight of evidence is on this side or this side. That's how we make our search real for us.
Okay. I think we have only time for one or two more questions. So one person asked, some Hindus compared Shiva drinking poison for mankind bigger or more important than Jesus' death on the cross. How to explain to them that Jesus' death is the most important?
I think when we do across continents, the words don't come out clear. So once again, we'll go sentence by sentence because a complex question requires looking at each sentence. So what's the first one?
All right.
First sentence.
So some Hindus, so the first sentence, some Hindus compared Shiva drinking poison for mankind
One second, one second.
bigger
What's the next word? No, wait.
or
I
more
didn't get the words.
important than Jesus' death?
No. Candle,
Mm.
I haven't got the first sentence. Some Hindus, what are the next words? Shiva after
Some
the word Shiva?
Hindus, yes, yeah, compare
No, what is the sentence? I didn't get the
Shiva
question at all.
drinking poison.
Um, I'm not
Yeah, he's
getting the
giving
word.
the
Some
person's
people.
giving a statement first and then a question.
So what's
Some,
the?
you last heard Shiva, is it? Can you hear me?
It's a little blurred. I don't know. The words are not coming out clear. Can you go a little closer to the mic?
Hmm. Yes. Can you hear me clearly?
A little
So
better. Go
sorry
closer.
about the internet.
Or raise the volume in your
Yeah.
mic.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Now it's a little clearer. Yes, good.
Okay. Some Hindus compare Shiva drinking poison for mankind.
One moment. I didn't get those words. Shiva. What's the next words?
Drinking poison.
I'm not understanding those words.
Okay. Um.
Can you say
Dr.
each word
Pandit,
one by one after the
yeah.
word Shiva?
Okay. We were actually sending the question to you. Can you see in the chat box? Just in case. We actually have 1 more minute left for question.
Can you text me the
Um,
question?
yes, we've already texted you the question. Um, Dr. Pandit, I
Yes,
think we have no more time for more questions. Is it okay if we continue tomorrow?
that's fine. It's up to you. Just let me know. I'm ready for either. So if you want to close shop now, that's fine. And text me the questions, please. And we will deal with
Yes,
them tomorrow because we have time tomorrow too.
yes. So sorry everyone for the delay. Um, we have many more questions pouring in like a waterfall. Actually, you can tell how everyone has been so intrigued by the session. The committee will look into organizing an extra session to answer all the questions depending on Dr. Pandit's availability, but we will let you know if that happens. So we really appreciate your time, Dr. Pandit, and all that you've shared with us. Um, so thank you so much, Dr. Pandit, for an excellent expository on the topic that we have today. Um, so since we've run out of time, let us do a closing word of prayer. Let's pray. Our gracious Father in heaven, thank you so much for guiding our session today. We just like to ask that you please continue to help us to be reminded of what we've learned, that we can share it to the world, that others may know truth as well. I pray that you please continue to be with Dr. Pandit to make him a blessing. In Jesus' name we pray and ask. Amen.
Amen.
So thank you everyone for your time. We'd like to apologize again for the problems, but we'd like to remind you again that the next workshop by Dr. Pandit will be at the same time tomorrow at 7:30 Malaysian time, and the next workshop later by Dr. Steve Wahlberg will be at 9 p.m. So see you all then. Thank you again.